Good evening and welcome to CCP TV, Community College of Philadelphia's Emmy-nominated educational channel. This special episode was taped earlier, and we are airing it for you tonight. The show centers around the incredible organization developed by Baba Ahmed Kenya, Images of the Motherland Interactive Theater. The group focuses on historical reenactments of incredibly fearless Africans who were enslaved in the Americas as well as other parts of the world. These are true Islamic heroes. Tonight we have three extraordinary actors playing equally extraordinary characters from Images of the Motherland. Omar Ibn Said, played by Baba Ahmed Kenya, Yero Mahmoud, played by Mumin Yassin, and Muhammad Ali ibn Said, played by William White. All characters, for the sake of authenticity, speak in Fulani and English. Created by Baba Ahmed Kenya, Images of the Motherland went through a metamorphosis from doing African theater based upon their own original drama productions on authenticated African history. And in 2009, the current transition to historical figures, forgotten roots, with a direct link to African American history and American history was forged. They are the link, or bridge, between Africa and African Americans. Their characters tell of their life experiences in Africa prior to enslavement, and their autobiographies and interviews are what their presentations are based upon. Ahmed Kenya writes the scripts for these narratives. The Living History Heritage Project, which debuted earlier this season, focused on this important work. Enjoy these powerful performances from and interviews with Baba Ahmed Kenya, Mumim Yassin, and William White as their characters.
Ndamko, Yero Mahmoud. My name is Yero Mahmoud. Yero was a name given to me by my father. Yero means the fourth son born into the family. Ngumbi, Miko, Futujalone. Futujalone is my birthplace. The land we now know as Guinea, near the Senegal River in West Africa. In the year 1752, my sister Amanda and I were captured and taken away from our country, our homeland, never to see our friends, our family, ever again in life. I was 16 years old. It was 23 years before America became a free nation. I'm going to tell you about many things I've seen in my life and many things I've done in my life before this nice Tubago man paints my picture.
Yero,
Good morning.
thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from Liverpool and what happened in the ship that you were on, the Elijah?
Yes. At the time, I was a young child. I was 16 years old. And it was the year 1752 when I was brought here, along with my sister Amanda.
Okay.
We were both captured in our homeland, Futujalone, and the journey was quite treacherous because there were slaves that were enchained everywhere, and as the drool and the other body fluids that were flowing off the bodies from below and above the deck. It was a horrible, horrible scene, and the smell was just horrific. I had never been enslaved before and never seen enslavement. So I was horrified. Didn't know where I was going, where I was at, or what would happen to me or my sister. I heard many voices around me. Some I recognized, some I didn't. But I was in fright, not knowing what would become of me, because I know I'll never see my family again.
It must have been so painful. And there were so many people that died on the ship. How many did you start with?
I believe we started with 160, and out of the 160 that were on the original voyage of the slave ship Elijah, only 140 survived.
Oh my goodness.
24 of us perished, and it was terrible. Those that couldn't make it because the horrific
The
experience that they were being exposed to.
Yeah, and the illnesses that must have run through the ship. I mean, all those people coming from their homeland, their motherland, being ripped away from what they knew, like you said. It must have been just so awful. When you arrived in the United States, you were in Maryland?
Yes. We came through Annapolis, Maryland. At the time, Annapolis, Maryland was a very important slave port to bring slaves through. And the region that we came from was a region that was called the Gold Coast. And that was a region that the tobacco man usually gave the area, that general area.
Who was your master when you got to the United States?
Well, my first master was Christopher Beale, who was my first master. I mean, Charles Beale was my first master, and he passed away. Then I was passed on to his son, Christopher Beale.
What was it like living in that environment and being a slave there?
Well, I was treated very well
Okay.
because I didn't do the regular slave chores that slaves that worked out in the fields or slaves that worked in the house did. I was a personal body servant for my first and second master.
Okay.
And when both masters passed away, I was passed on to Christopher Beale's wife.
Okay. So you stayed within that family
Yes, always.
throughout.
Yes, I lived right there with the family.
And you were enslaved for close to 60 years, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
When you were finally released from slavery, what happened?
Well, I got my malmission papers, and the moment I received them, because I received my malmission papers because I was able to obtain my freedom as I built my slave master's wife a house, and the original deal was if I built a house, I would be set free. And that was the agreement I had with my second owner's son, which was Christopher Beale. But he passed away, so during the period he passed away, his wife, she kept her promise that he had made, and he set me free. So she set me free, yes.
And you built this house where? Where was
I built the house after I was set free. I built a house on Dent Place in Georgetown, and the address 3522 Dent Place. I built the house with my own hands, along with there was 2 other slaves that lived in my area in the same block.
And where did you go to live? Did you
In
live
Georgetown.
in Georgetown?
Yes.
And you became a beacon of hope in Georgetown, and are still one as we move into the 21st century. If we go far ahead in time, there was a wonderful portrait done of you, which actually hangs in the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and Charles Wilson Peale painted you. What was that experience for you?
Oh, the experience was a very good experience. At the time, I was an older gentleman, and was very taken aback by having the privilege of being recognized to have a picture taken, portrait of myself.
It's really amazing. I bet
Yes.
it was amazing for you.
Yes, it was.
And this is the portrait here that you'll see. We'll also see the image, a larger version of the image, and all of the amazing things that happened to Eero that he's talked about and told us about. You can research this great man and learn more about that time period and what history was really like, not what we hear about. Thank you so much, Eero.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for the invitation, Kirsten.
Absolutely, I appreciate
Thank
it.
Indamko. Uma, bin Said. My name is Umar bin Said. That means my name is Umar, the son of Said. I was born in the year 1770, and I died in the year 1863 when I was 96 years old. Ingumi Miko Futatoro. My birthplace was a land called Futatoro, and I was born in the year 1770 on the banks of the Senegal River in Africa. In the year 1788, when I was 18 years old, the great Almami of Futatoro, that is the ruler of Futatoro, his name was Abdul Qadir Khani, and he issued an edict prohibiting the slave trade in Futatoro. But then, one dark day, the alarm was sounded. It was sounded far too late. A large army attacked my village, killing most of the men and taking me captive. They took me and they forced me down to the banks of the Senegal River and then to the coast of the Great Sea, where they sold me into the hands of the Tubabo. It was the Tubabo who took us and bound us together, 2 by 2, who could only speak the same language. We sailed the mighty sea for 1 month and a half until we came to that place they called Charlestown in the Christian language. That is a place in South Carolina. I remember it well. It was the year 1807. I was 37 years old. And I was among the last group of Africans brought into America from the transatlantic slave trade. Oh, what shall I do? My father, what shall I do? My father. Jamaga! Freedom!
Omar, thank you for being with us here today.
Jarba.
You have had an amazing journey, and you've shown us in your performance some of what you went through from the time you left your homeland to come here to the United States, which was a very harrowing time for you in your history. What was it like when you first arrived here?
Well, I was brought in through the port of Charleston, South Carolina.
Right.
We called it Charlestown back then. And once the hatch of the slave ship was opened in the doorway in the top, and the light came in for the first time, it was blinding because we had been kept below deck most of the voyage. You see, this was the year 1807, and the United States had entered into a unilateral agreement with the British government for the abolishment of slavery. So they had agreed that any vessel they caught on the open seas with human cargo on board, the ship would be seized, the captain and his crew would be executed, and the people that were enslaved would be returned back to the different ports that were in the manifest that they came from. So what slave raiders did during that particular year was they kept the slaves, the enslaved people, below the deck for most of the voyage.
Right.
1 month and a half below the deck, you know, with the stacked on just above each other, the human excrement, the body fluids, menstruating women couldn't cleanse themselves. All this is falling down on you from the person, the one who is above you, and the one who is below. And so it was like a floating biohazard, a flotilla of biohazard. And so out of, I believe we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 300, maybe 310, 320 that were kept below deck. Somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 290 or 280 survived. The rest perished along the way. You know, people had wounds, open wounds from when they were captured. And because they didn't allow them to receive medical treatment or to be treated, these wounds would fester, you know, and exposed to the bodily fluids of someone else and the rats, you know, in the billing of the ship, you know, who would bite and eat on the wounds also. So it was very desperate. When I arrived in Charlestown, South Carolina, I was extremely sickly.
Were you?
You can understand why.
Of course.
Yes, yes. So these were the conditions under which I arrived here in the United States in Charlestown, South Carolina.
And what were the conditions like once you were enslaved here?
Well,
or in Charleston?
The first master they sold me to was a very kind man. He treated me very kindly. But unfortunately, he died within a very short period of time. Then they sold me to a Hellion. This man, he was like a demon to Bible. Johnson. Johnson had no fear of God. Absolutely none whatsoever. He was a rice plantation owner. And he beat me and forced me to do labor far harsher and far greater than anything I could even bear. You know, when you cultivate rice, you cultivate rice in a marsh, in water. You know, in Africa, we cultivate rice also. But you can go out into the marshlands and you can work, and then you can take your break to rest from the intensity of the sun when the sun is high.
Right.
You know, but here in Charlestown, they didn't allow us to do this. They didn't allow us to have any cover from the sun. They worked us from the time the sun came up to the time the sun set. And then there was the problem of malaria, you see? And then if you became ill, you weren't allowed to stay in your hut or your cabin and recuperate. You had to go back out the next day and to work again. The policy of these people at this time was it was cheaper to buy them, to buy the slaves and to breed them because they were making so much profit off of rice alone. And this is the man I ran away from.
Good.
I had enough of this
Yes.
insane madness. I stayed with him maybe 2.5 years because the average lifespan of a slave on a South Carolina rice plantation was about 5 years. And then he or she would die from the disease and the pestilence and the typhoid in the cabins because it was so hot.
Right.
So this is what I ran away from. I decided it's time for me to go and leave my fate with whatever Allah provides me with.
It was often the case where people of Islamic faith were asked to convert to Christianity or forced to convert to Christianity. How did you maintain your faith, your Islamic faith, while you were in slavery?
Well, you have to look at a number of things. First of all, I was fortunate when I was 20 years old to make the pilgrimage to Mecca. So I went on the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. And I was gone for about 15 years or so.
Really?
Yes, it took that long to travel from Podor. Podor is a station in the area of Futa Toro that I came from. To travel by land because we didn't have access to boats or ships that would go all the way around the western and northern part of Africa. So we had to walk, or we rode on camels or donkeys or horses from water station to water station. That is the way we travel. So in making the pilgrimage to Mecca, I learned many things about not only the Arabic language, but about the Quran also. And even before I left to go for the pilgrimage, I studied in places like Bundu. Bundu was like a intelligentsia center in Futa Toro. And there I studied and learned how to read and to write Arabic. And I was like, you say, magnet child.
Yes.
The brainy one, the one who thinks. And they rewarded me by giving me a mastership. And I taught my own classes for 10 years.
Did you? And you taught in the United States as well?
In the United States, I tried to teach.
You tried.
Yes.
Would they let you is the question.
Well, it's back to your question. How did I keep and retain my faith? They gave me, with my third master, the first one, he was the kind one who died. The second one was this demon named Johnson. I ran away from him. And then the next man that took me on and took care of me was, he was the brother of the governor. John was the brother of the governor. James. Oh, I can't remember his last name for some reason. He was a wonderful man, though. Anyway, Owens, Jim Owens. There we go. It's hard to remember things when you get as old as I am, But anyway.
When you've been through so much as you have.
Yes. But Jim Owen, he treated me very kindly. His family also treated me very kindly. They were a prestigious family. And he recognized the fact that I was different. I had education.
Yes.
I was a master of mathematics.
Right.
And he recognized these characteristics. So he gave me my own house. All my food was cooked by the Owens family cook. They took me to the church with them and they gave me the seat in the front row with the Owens family.
Right.
And here I am sitting there among the Owens family, and the people would come and they would ask me to write things from the Bible into the Arabic language. And I didn't know what these things were saying because I could not speak English yet.
Right.
I spoke many other languages, but I had not learned English yet. And so when I knew these things were of a religious, spiritual nature for them, I wrote passages of the Quran instead and gave to them. They asked me to write the 23rd Psalm, and I wrote the 110th chapter of the Quran and gave that to them instead.
Right.
You see, so I wrote many things throughout my lifetime including my autobiography.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that because it was the first, actually at this point, only known autobiography
Yes,
written by a Muslim
and written by someone who was still in captivity.
in captivity.
Yes.
I was just going to say that.
It's American literature now.
It is.
Yes, yes.
And it's a very important aspect
Yes,
of this culture
yes.
and your culture.
Yes.
You've brought some artifacts with you. I wanted to start with this one since we were talking about you as a teacher. And this would be something that the students would use.
Yes, and the instructor would have a larger version.
Sure.
And every student would have one of these. This is called loha. It means a prayer board or a writing board.
Okay.
And the children would write down the lessons on the prayer board. And at the end of the day, they would line up and bring it to the teacher to check them for mistakes. And if everything was fine, he would wet a cloth and wipe it off, clean it off, stack it to the side, and the student went home.
Okay.
But if there were things that were incorrect in there, he would send the student home with the board balanced on top of his head.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
And he had to come back
That
to
teaches
school
you
the
a
same way.
lesson, too.
Well, the idea was so that everyone in the village could see this child needed help.
Yeah.
And they would all come together
Would they?
and try to help him to study or her to study and learn his lessons correctly.
That's beautiful.
So it's the concept, you have a village raising a child.
Child,
There you go.
yes.
Yes.
It takes a village.
Yes, of course.
And it actually happens
That's true. Yes.
in your country.
Yes, yes.
You've brought an amazing artifact, the Quran, with you.
Yes,
This
yes.
is a beautiful text.
This is something very special.
Very special.
This is a handwritten copy of the Quran that is dated 1759. It is 6 years older than the Thomas Jefferson Quran in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
So beautiful.
It's gilded in gold. This is actual gold filling that was used to gild it. There are two people that it takes to make this. One is the person who does the writing, the katib, and the other one is the person who does the artwork around the edges, the borders, to beautify it. This is an enlargement of this same particular chapter in the Quran, and this is the opening chapter called Surah Fatiha, which means the opening. And this is recited 19 times a day minimum by Muslims when they make their prayers. So this is very, very significant and very important. And as I said, this is 6 years older than Thomas Jefferson's Quran. Now, this is another thing I want to show you. This is the writing style that I would have used. This is the writing style that Yiro Mahmoud would have used, and also Muhammad Ali ibn Said. This writing style is called Maghribi. Maghribi means the far west. It means specifically West and North Africa. It was invented in the 10th century. It was invented by the Berbers, and it was invented by them while they were in Spain. So it was very prominent from the 10th century to the 14th century. This is a copy of the Quran that's printed in the Maghribi script, this style of writing. And this was very prominent until the 14th century. Now, there are older people, pretty much up in age, who can still read and make out this writing script. You know, I have learned to do the same myself. But this is what the original would have looked like, that they would have learned from.
Right. Oh, wow. Look at this. The language is so beautiful.
Yes.
Not just in spoken terms, but in the writing.
Yes, in the
It's-
artistic
it's
form,
Like,
yes.
It's like, it is art.
Yes, it is.
It's amazing art.
It is.
You were a tradesman as well.
Yes, I was. I had to pay some bills, you know.
Of course. Of course. And a lot of times what Americans think is that African slaves, people who were brought here, began picking cotton and dealing with cotton when they came here, but that is not true. That is absolutely not true. In fact, we have some more artifacts here. Can you tell us what this is?
Yes.
And how this was made?
You know, Africans have been involved in all aspects of civilization
Yes.
from the dawn of time. You know,
Right.
cotton was used and very valued in the Middle East, North Africa. Cotton grew and was cultivated. As you can see from here, the pods that the cotton grew on. It was picked and it was twisted and spun into the fibers, and then those fibers would be wound up on a spool. You know, like your old time spindle and carpet making machine.
Yes.
And then they would be woven in strips, like you see here, with the designs and colors, and then they would be sewn together to make the final fabric. And it would be made in different weights, depending
Right.
on the grade of the cotton, etc. So these are Fulani wedding blankets. They come in many different designs and many different color schemes. These are made and they're given as gifts to people when they get married. So if say if you got married and you had a wedding and we were all invited, we would come and we would bring you these in different colors and different patterns to have as part of your new home, your dowry, your life, etc.
Beautiful. Imagine receiving this as a gift.
Yes.
This is incredible, and so much detail and so much work
Yes.
that went into this. Other things that you've brought with you salt, which was a huge commodity
Yes.
of
yes.
Africa, and we see it here.
Yes,
future.
common everyday salt.
Yes. And we also have a chisel that was used,
That's actually a salt hammer.
a salt hammer, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
That's okay.
And so it
You're learning. You're a good
I
student.
am. I'm learning. I'm trying. I should be writing it down. We even have a toothbrush.
That's right. The toothbrush came from the Muslim civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we had to have good dental hygiene.
Yes. Excellent. And what is this?
This is a specialty that was used by women in particular. It was used as a weight to hang on the veil to help
Okay.
to keep the veil in
keep the
place,
veil,
the
okay.
fabric in place. But also it contains so many tools. It's almost like a Swiss Army knife, you know?
Yes.
You have something for parting the hair when you braid the hair, something to put the eyeliner
kohl.
under the kahla under the eyes, you know, something to pull out the thorn when you stick it in your foot
Oh.
when you walk barefoot,
Right.
you know, and something else to cut, and or this one you clean out the ears with, you know, to get the
Really?
wax out of the ears.
Okay.
And it's comes from the Tuareg people. It was you know, circulated throughout North and West Africa. So it was very common to see this kind of thing.
Multi-purpose.
Yes, of course.
Lovely. This is great. Thank you so much
You're
for being
more
here
than
and
welcome.
sharing all of your stories with us and all of your artifacts with us. We so appreciate you being here, Omar.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jarama.
Jarama.
Okay, brothers and sisters, repeat after me. Comment allez-vous? Comment allez-vous? Très bien, très bien. Now for the reply. Je m'appelle Nikolai. Je m'appelle Nikolai. What is your name? My name is Nicholas. The year was 1863, and the United States was in the third year of the U.S. Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln had just signed and issued the Emancipation Proclamation and established what is known as the USCT, the United States Colored Troops for African American men, to join the Union Army to fight in the war against slavery. I had saw the posters that read, "Men of color, to arms, to arms, now or never." I had heard all of the horrible stories about the abusive treatment. that the colored people had received due to the hands of the slave masters. Remembering that I too had once been a slave, and realizing that no man should ever be enslaved, I then decided to put down my chalk and my eraser, give up teaching, in exchange for a blue uniform in the Union Army to fight in the war against slavery. I would join the 55th Massachusetts Infantry Colored Regiment, where I would rise to the rank of sergeant, engaging in many battles. I would personally request to be demoted to the rank of corporal. Why, you may ask? So that I can learn to work in the medical tent, to become a surgeon. I would retire at the end of the U.S. Civil War. Upon my retirement, I would write my autobiography, and I would sell to all those who were interested. By the end of the Civil War, the year was 1865. In my autobiography, I would intentionally omit all details pertaining to my participation in the U.S. Civil War. Why again? Because I had feared not only for my life, but that of my wife, where we resided in Tennessee, where I would remain until my death at the age of 49 in 1882. From among the more than 200,000 men, African American men, that fought in the Union Army, unfortunately, we would lose 34,160 African American Union soldiers. The 1865 U.S. muster rolls will also show that out of those more than 200,000 men, African American men, that 292 of them had Muslim names. In them ko Muhammad Ali ibn Said. My name is Muhammad Ali ibn Said. Ngume, Miku, Kuka, Kanumbarnu. My birthplace is a village called Kuka in the land of Kanumbarnu. This was a village near Lake Chad in central West Africa. I was born in the year 1833. My father was a great horseman and general known as Barka Ghana. I am the 9th child of my mother with 11 brothers and 7 sisters. And out of 200,000 African American men, again, I repeat, 292 of them had Muslim names. I am Muhammad Ali ibn Said, United States Colored Troop, number 292. Allah Yatama.
Mohammed, thank you for coming here and sharing your story with us. What a powerful story that you have. You're representing to us another facet of the story of Africans coming to this country, of Muslims coming to this country after many, many hardships. And yours was a long journey, starting from when you were kidnapped at a very young age.
Yes, I was 16 years old. I remember playing with my friends from my village. And there were a group of Kindletroig who I saw from a distance. I was at the top of a very large tree. It's known as a baobab tree. And by the time that I had realized who they were and what was going on, it was far too late. Yes.
You traveled to many countries as a slave
Yes, I am.
and had many harsh masters.
Correct. I had good ones too.
You did.
Yes.
What were some of the places that you traveled to?
Oh, let's see. I traveled to Tripoli, to Libya. Well, Tripoli is in Libya. One master I had taken a Hajj, went on a pilgrimage to Mecca, and during that time, we had gone to Tunis. What else? We had gone to Khartoum, Jeddah, Arabia, Medina, Mecca, back to Tripoli, and then to Smyrna. Smyrna was the place where I was sold on the slave market. From there, oh goodness, so many different places. I remember a Russian dignitary coming to pick me up, and he saw me, he wanted me, and from there we traveled to Odessa, and I was there in Odessa where I had gained my freedom.
Yes.
Yes.
And your name was changed.
My name was changed after I was bought by another Russian dignitary.
Okay.
The reason why is because that master, he found it very hard or uncomfortable to be in the same, how do you say, in the circumference of a practicing Muslim. He would hound me every day. He would make me imitate everything he did as he prayed, kneeling and bowing, and making the sign of the cross. You know, he hounded me so much until one day, I would say it was about 1855. I was about 22. I couldn't take it no longer. So I would convert to Catholicism. And at that time, anyone who was considered a slave would take the name of their master, to show ownership.
They took everything away from you, even your name,
Correct.
even your religion.
Yes.
But they couldn't take it away from you in your heart.
Never, never, never. But one thing I must say is that at that time, my thought process would be that the Christian people did not know that we all have the same principles. We
Yes.
have the same God.
Mm-hmm.
We may represent that supreme being in various ways, but the underlying message is the same.
It is.
Now, the intent of the practitioner of said religion or spiritual concepts tells a whole different story.
Mm.
If one has evil in their heart, then they would produce evil. And some would produce evil in the name of God, which is not good. If one has good in his heart, then he will produce more good, which is good.
Yeah. That was very powerfully stated.
Why, thank you.
It's so true, because we all come from a common ground when it comes to religion, and if you don't see that, and you don't see what others and their commonalities are towards you, you're missing the point. You're missing so much. You're missing the ability to communicate. You're harboring hate in your soul, and all of those things, could lead to the ultimate sacrifice, lead to death in many cases. And
Correct.
when you came, you had learned many languages.
Yes.
You
yes,
had been a teacher.
Yes.
Yes.
The languages I had learned, I actually learned quite a few in Odessa.
Mm-hmm.
But first, my father would be the first to expose us to different languages.
Mm-hmm.
My father made sure that we, meaning my brothers and my sisters, that we had all learned to speak both the Arabic and Turkish languages.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, during my capture initially, no one had spoke neither of the two.
Mm.
So I could not communicate with anyone.
Yes.
However, by the time I made it to Odessa, I had learned, German, Russian, French, Italian, Persian, and English. Yes,
That's amazing.
correct. Well, thank you. It's difficult to speak the English language.
It certainly is.
One thing I've learned is that this language, one word can mean so many things.
Yes.
Brings about a lot of confusion.
Sure.
And I realized the confusion when I was teaching my fellow brothers and sisters
Mm-hmm.
to speak French.
Yes.
They barely understood what I was saying because there was one word that means so many things in
Yeah.
English.
Yeah. You are holding shackles, and you have the American flag draped over you.
Yes. The reason being is because, in one hand, it represents the struggle. It also represents my beginnings
Mm-hmm.
as a man. Not as a boy, but as a man.
Yeah.
My struggles, though they were hard, the same hand possessed my heart on the same side. So, where my heart is where my God is. My God had never given up on me. That's why the chains are in my hand and not on my hand.
Yes.
And in my right hand is the symbol of all the chaos that could take place, but all the good that can come out of it.
Mm.
If we can just look past our own personal differences, we all have a heart. If the doctor operates on you, you have a heart. Sometimes it might end up on the right side of your chest, but you still have a heart. If the doctor operates on me. I have a heart.
Yes, you do.
So yes, life is filled with hardships, but the glory that can come from all of the hardships if you don't give in, it's wonderful.
And you never gave in.
Never. I did what I did to survive, but I had never given in.
So glad that you were sharing this with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
ma'am.
much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And it's been a beautiful, beautiful conversation, as well as an honor to see you
Why,
and your fellow men perform for us.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
This right here is an honor for me because to this date, 150 years ago, I would be hanged just for doing this. And I mean you no harm. As we would say in my native tongue or in my traditional, Assalamu alaikum. May peace be unto you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You're very welcome.
I hope you enjoyed our special guests, Baba Ahmed Kenya, William White, and Mummun Yassin. I want to thank them for being a part of this fascinating episode. And if you'd like to learn more about tonight's performances in this fabulous cast, please check out images of the Motherland Interactive Theater online. The company provides study guides, performance arts, music, museum artifact exhibitions, and performances for its audiences. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Kirsten Quinn, and you've been watching the Philadelphia Cultural Forum on CCP TV, Community College of Philadelphia's Emmy-nominated educational channel.